guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another book review video. Let's talk about the books that I read in the month of March. But first, for those that do not know, I have a Facebook book club group. And for the month of April, we are reading The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. And then the bonus read for the month is On a Quiet Street by Serafina Nova Glass. If you'd like to join the book club, there will be a link down below. I read a total of 7 books in the month of March. 3 of them were audiobooks and 4 were ebooks that I read. As always, I'm going to give you the Goodreads rating at the time of filming this video and my personal rating. There will be no spoilers in this review video. I read pretty much exclusively ebooks. They are definitely my preference. I find books at my local library through Amazon Prime Reading, which is free with Amazon Prime service, through Kindle Unlimited, which is a pay service through Amazon. There are many, many books to choose from on Kindle Unlimited. Highly recommend it. And I do find good sales through the Kindle app and through the Apple Books app. I normally will not pay over $3.99, $4.99 for a book. If I found a book through Prime Reading or Kindle Unlimited, I will let you know. There'll be links to these services as well as links to each book's Goodreads page and the Amazon page where you can read reviews or purchase. If you'll want to be friends on Goodreads, my link is down below. And as always, these tend to be longer videos, so get a snack and drink and settle in, and let's get into the reviews. As always, I have my notes right here, which I just went to page 7 for some reason. So let's get set up. I like to make sure I am capturing all my thoughts on these books, so I do look ahead here and look at my notes. Now, normally I do my reviews based on the order of how I read them. However, I'm going to do it a little bit different this month because the 3 audiobooks that I read were part of the same series of books. And these books, though, can also be read as a standalone. So don't worry about any spoilers if you read these out of order. And because these books are pretty much the same type of books, I'm going to talk about them first and then we'll move on to the ebooks that I read. So the 3 audiobooks that I listened to were by Melinda Lee and her Bree Taggert series. If you have watched my book reviews before, you know that I've already read the first 2 books in the Bree Taggert series by Melinda Lee and really enjoyed them. And I wanted to listen to something on audiobooks that were a little bit lighter, things that I did not have to really pay a lot of attention to, that I could, just have on while I was either driving or while I was doing stuff around the house, cooking dinner, those kind of things, and didn't really have to be totally like cued in and invested in it because these are just really light, cozy mysteries. So first I'm going to read you the synopsis of each of the 3 books that I listened to, and then I will give you my general thoughts on the series so far. And this entire series is on Kindle Unlimited. So the book number 1 that I listened to was Drown Her Sorrows by Melinda Lee. My rating 5 stars. The Goodreads rating 4.45 stars. And this is the 3rd book in the series. When Sheriff Bree Taggert discovers the body of a young woman floating near the bank of the Scarlet River, a note in her abandoned car suggests suicide. The autopsy reveals a different story. Holly Thorpe was dead long before she dropped off the bridge and hit the water. As Bree and her investigator Matt Flynn delve into the case, secrets in Holly's personal life complicate their efforts to solve the murder. Holly left behind a volatile marriage, an equally divisive relationship with her sister, and an employer whose intimate involvement with Holly was no secret. Each one has a motive for murder. When Holly's sister is terrorized by a stalker's sick prank and the prime suspect turns up dead, everything Bree was sure of is upended and her case goes off the rails. When the killer strikes close to home, Bree and Matt must race to solve the murders before one of their own becomes the next victim. Number 2, right behind her, again by Melinda Lee, my rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 4.46 stars, and this is the 4th book in the series. 27 years ago, Sheriff Bree Taggert's father killed her mother, then himself. Now Bree and her younger brother Adam find human bones on the grounds of their abandoned family farm. The remains are those of a man and a woman, both murdered in the same horrible way. When the investigation determines the murders occurred 30 years before, Bree's dead father becomes a suspect, forcing Bree to revisit the brutal night she spent most of her life trying to forget. The only other suspect is an unlikely squatter on the Taggert farm who claims to know secrets about Bree's past. When he mysteriously disappears and Bree's niece is kidnapped, the cold case heats up. Bree has stoked the rage of a murderer who'll do anything to keep his identity and motives a secret. To protect everyone she loves, Bree must confront a killer. The third audiobook I listened to was Dead Against Her, again by Melinda Lee. My rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 4.52 stars, and this is the 5th book in the series. Called to an isolated farm to check on an elderly widow, Sheriff Bree Taggert finds a brutal double homicide. One of the victims is Eugene Oscar, the bitter and corrupt former deputy she recently fired. Working with criminal investigator Matt Flynn, Bree discovers that she isn't the only one who has a troubling history with Eugene, but someone doesn't want Bree digging up the past. She becomes the target of a stranger's sick and devious campaign calculated to destroy her reputation, career, family, and new relationship with Matt. To make matters worse, she's the prime suspect in Eugene's murder. When her chief deputy goes missing while investigating the case, Bree refuses to back down. She won't let him become the next victim, his life and her future depending on finding a killer, nursing a vengeful rage. So I adore this series, and I actually, little spoiler alert, I did listen to the 6th book already. I didn't get done with that though until in April. So actually yesterday I finished listening to it, or I finished reading it. I was listening to it and then I wrapped up the rest of it in bed last night. But I absolutely adore this series. They're all nice, cozy mysteries. They are not thrillers, really, or suspense-filled, although this last one, Dead Against Her, was actually a little bit more suspenseful than any of them so far. And I have to say, though, sometimes I have not even guessed the whodunit part of the book. They're not real obvious. So it is a really nice, one of those, like I said, those whodunits that really keeps you guessing. Usually until about 3/4 of the way. I would say the last quarter of the book is always they have already figured out, okay, this is who did it, and then it's a matter of trying to catch that person, trying to, make the case against them, that kind of thing. So it's not like just this twist right at the end. It wraps up really nicely. Each mystery wraps up really well, which I absolutely love because I don't like sometimes when it's just an ending or a cliffhanger at the end of a book. These wrap up really well. And I also, they're just nice and easy, fast-paced reads, and I enjoy them, and they're great audiobooks. The narrator, she is so good. She does all the voices really well. I just cannot recommend the audio version of these enough. And the audiobook and to read the ebook are all on Kindle Unlimited. The continuing characters in the series are so likable, and I look forward to reading them in each installment. I can't wait to hear what the next part is. And I would say that so far, Dead Against Her, which is book 5, is my favorite in the series so far. And like I said, I did listen to book 6, and I got done with that yesterday. And then that's the end so far. So book 7, I believe, comes out in June. And then I think the final book will be book 8, and it doesn't come out till next year, which is kind of a bummer. I kind of like getting 2 series when they're almost done, and then that way I can wrap them up. I can see her maybe doing an offshoot. So Melinda Lee has I think 2, maybe 3 other series on Kindle Unlimited, and one of them is Morgan Dane, who is in these books every once in a while, is in the Bree Taggert ones. They have her in there as an attorney. She was in, I think, book 4 as an attorney, and I want to say she was either in book 1 or 2 as well. And she has her own full series, and those are, so it's nice, all wrap in. And I believe there's a Scarlet Falls one, which Scarlet Falls is the neighboring town of Gray's Hollow, I believe is Gray's. You would think I would know. I feel like it's Gray's Hollow. It's the neighboring little town. And so it's nice that all these characters are intertwined, and I can see them taking one of these, actually having another series. I can kind of see that happening maybe from a couple of the characters in this so far. So we'll see if she does that. But top notch, really good. Like I said, the narrator is really good. So cannot recommend these enough. I mean, like I said, they're nothing like huge thought-provoking books, but they are just a nice little cozy mystery that I think that you guys would enjoy. So when I start filming I just start sneezing sometimes, and I was having the hardest time in that last little clip trying not to sneeze, and I was like, my nose was itching so bad I had to stop it like 4 times to sneeze. I don't know what it is about filming that makes me all itchy and twitchy and sneezy. Okay, let's go into the ebooks that I read. Book number 4, The Inmate by Frida McFadden. My rating 4 stars, Goodreads rating 4.19. This was our March book club read of the month. This book is also on Kindle Unlimited. You guys know how much I love Frida McFadden. Let's go into the synopsis. There are 3 rules Brooke Sullivan must follow as a new nurse practitioner at a men's maximum security prison. Treat all prisoners with respect. Never reveal any personal information. Never ever become too friendly with the inmates. But none of the staff at the prison knows Brooke has already broken the rules. Nobody knows about her intimate connection to Shane Nelson, one of the penitentiary's most notorious and dangerous inmates. And they certainly don't know that Shane was Brooke's high school sweetheart, the star quarterback who is now spending the rest of his life in prison for a series of grisly murders, or that Brooke's testimony was what put him there. But Shane knows, and he will never forget. So this was not one of my favorites by Frida McFadden. It was still a solid 4-star read for me, but it just had issues, and it was really hard for me to overlook some of these issues, for me to say, okay, let's just give it 5 stars because it's Frida McFadden and she's a great writer and she always keeps us on the edge of our seat. But there were just some things that I just could not overlook. So let's start with the prose. Fast read, per usual, Frida style. It's short chapters, fly through it really, really quickly. The dual timelines worked really well, and they just really kept me on edge because you went back from the past to the present, and that you got your story. So we were getting bits and pieces of the past and then bits and pieces from the present. So I believe it was 10 or 11 years in between the 2 timelines, and you really got invested in each of the stories. So it was really nice to get a little piece of each of the stories going on. And of course, Frida's storytelling is so exceptional, and she has the best twists and turns that really kept me guessing. The cons. So I can usually overlook unlikable characters. But you guys know I do not, well, for one thing, I don't like not well-developed characters. And I wouldn't say that the character of Brooke was not well-developed. I just did not like her at all. It's not, like I said, it's not one of those cases where you're supposed to hate her and she's unlikable. You're not. Like, she is the main character that you're supposed to like and feel for and root for. But in fact, like, she was so unbelievably dumb. And honestly, I know that's a bad choice of words. I just can't think of a more fitting word for her. There were just so many times I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, just definitely a lot of WTF moments. And I'm just thinking, like, why would you do that? Oblivious. I think that may be a better word for her. She's totally oblivious and naive. There's also a lot of repetitive thoughts from her. That was the other thing too. It's like, she was just constantly repeating the same stuff over and over again, especially when she would be talking about Shane and her past, and it was just like, yes, we get it. You think he's hot. You get it. You think, I mean, it was just so repetitive, and I think that also kind of led to her not being the brightest, and I don't know if she was really supposed to be taken that way. I have no idea. Like, I just couldn't get past it. There's also some pieces of it that I can't think of a better word to say than like old-fashioned. I don't know how else to word it, because this is modern day times. I mean, like I said, even this supposedly, I don't even think they told us what present day timeline is, but I'm thinking 2000s, and then we went back only 10, 11 years. So again, we're not talking like a huge difference in time. But like, one of the things that was brought up several times is that one of the kids was being bullied because he only had one parent. I just don't see that being an issue. Like, I don't think that would happen in this day and time, and also that Brooke was kind of looked down on for being a single parent. Like, her parents didn't want her to come back home because she decided to have a baby when she was 18. I mean, I'm pretty sure she was 18 at the time. So it wasn't even like she was, you know, young. She was done with high school, and like they didn't want her there. It just seemed old-fashioned. Like, I don't know how else to really word it. And it was just kind of weird. Like, it kept nagging at me. So those were really the two things that I really couldn't get past to be able to give it a 5-star. But all in all, definitely a good read, but not one of my favorites by this author. I'm still kind of going back between 3.5, 4 stars on this one. It's just, the more I talk about it, the more I keep thinking maybe 3 stars, 3.5 stars. Number 5, The Maid's Diary by Lorith Ann White. My rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 4.36. This one is on Kindle Unlimited as well. This is my first book from this author. Let's go on the synopsis. Kid Darling is a maid with a snooping problem. She's the invisible girl compelled to poke into her wealthy clients' closely guarded lives. It's a harmless hobby until Kit sees something she can't unsee in the home of her brand new clients. A secret so dark it could destroy the privileged couple expecting their first child. This makes Kit dangerous to the couple. In turn, it makes the couple who might kill to keep their secret dangerous to Kit. When homicide cop Mallory Van Alst is called to a scene at a luxury waterfront home known as the Glass House, she's confronted with evidence of a violent attack so bloody it's improbable the victim is alive, but there's no body. The homeowners are gone, and their maid is missing. The only witness is the elderly woman next door who woke to screams in the night. The neighbor was also the last person to see Kit Darling alive. As Mal begins to uncover the secret that has sent the lives of everyone involved on a devious and inescapable collision course, she realizes that nothing is quite as it seems, and no one escapes their past. So I started this as an audiobook, but because of the multiple points of view, and I was so I got so engrossed into it that I just had to stop listening and start reading, because I literally found myself with my phone in my hand, like even starting to swipe pages because the narrator was not reading it fast enough for me to know what was going to happen. I couldn't do it as an audiobook. I had to physically read that book because I had to read at my pace to see what was going to happen. This book is told in alternating narratives from The Maid's Diary, Daisy, John, and Mal the detective. The story is so well written, and it's like a perfect balance between like a police investigation procedural, I think that's what they call them, police procedural books, and then the people involved in it. The first half of this book is very, very suspenseful. That's where it just really, really ramps up. And the story though is so multi-layered and had a lot going on, but it was just so easy to follow. And I think it's just because the different points of view were so well done that it made it so easy to follow, even with all the different layers. And it was so different in the points of view that it wasn't, it wasn't like in some cases when you're listening to different points of view, you have to scroll back to see who you're actually reading from, because the thoughts are so similar. That was not the case here. Every little piece was so different. I was completely shocked at the end, but looking back, I do see where I missed some clues. And it kind of makes you think that maybe I read too fast sometimes, because as I found out what it was, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I think I remember that. Oh yes, there's a breadcrumb there and a breadcrumb there, and I just missed them all and stomped on those breadcrumbs instead of picking them up. The ending is like an epic face-to-face showdown that you don't want to miss. I highly, highly recommend this book. It was so, so good. And let me know if you've read this one. But you definitely should pick it up if you have Kindle Unlimited. And just remember that if you've never had Kindle Unlimited before, you can usually get a free trial, or you can get it for like 99 cents a month for a few months before you pay the $9.99. But for me, paying the $9.99 each month is so worth it. I just find so many books to read, and they are all so good. And you get some newer ones in there as well. Number 6 was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. My rating 4 stars, Goodreads rating 3.81 stars. This was our book club bonus read for the month, which is when we do a poll in the book club Facebook group, the book with the most votes is our book pick, and then the second place one is the bonus read, so people can read. And we do discussions, live Facebook discussions on both of the books. This is my second Alice Feeney book. Here's the synopsis. After years of avoiding each other, Daisy Darker's entire family is assembling for Nana's 80th birthday party in Nana's crumbling Gothic house on a tiny tidal island. Finally back together one last time, when the tide comes in, they will be cut off from the rest of the world for 8 hours. The family arrives, each of them harboring secrets. Then at the stroke of midnight, as a storm rages, Nana is found dead, and an hour later, the next family member follows. Trapped on an island where someone is killing them one by one, the Darkers must reckon with their present mystery as well as their past secrets before the tide comes in and all is revealed. With a wicked wink to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, Daisy Darker's unforgettable twist will leave readers reeling. Now, I've never read an Agatha Christie book. I have watched the 2 new movies that have come out. What is it? Death on the Nile, and I can't remember what the other one is. I love those movies. Absolutely loved those movies. And I cannot wait till the new one comes out, which is later this year. But I've never read any of her books or saw any of the older movies. But this really got me wanting to do that. I did glance at the Goodreads ratings after finishing this book, and I was really shocked that so many people did enjoy this one. I did enjoy this one a lot, but we all have different reading tastes, and that's what's so wonderful about books, is that I feel like there is a book out there for everyone. I love that, because there's just so many varieties of different genres, and it's just something for everyone. That's why reading is so special, I feel like. So I love it that people have disagreements on how people perceive a book, and I have if you don't like a book that I love, that's fine with me. I think that's great. Again, it's I think we have all different perspectives, but it always does shock me a little bit when I go to look in the reviews. If you guys don't know, I try not to look at reviews before I read a book. I try to go in, I'll look at the average book the Goodreads rating when I go to pick out a book to read, but I don't read the actual reviews. There's been so many times that my rating and my view on the book has been drastically different than Goodreads, so I've been really trying not to look at Goodreads as much. I just read the synopsis, and then that's it, and I just go into it reading and just seeing how I feel about it. And I've been finding that approach has been working really well for me, because I'm finding some books that I really, really enjoy by doing it that way. So I don't know, I suggest the same thing if you want to read the ratings, but just you have to remember that people have different likes and dislikes, and sometimes they just don't like it, and you may love it. So but let's talk about the pros. So I really liked that the time periods went from past to present time. So just and eventually kind of came all together, but I really liked how that worked, and I think it worked really well. The author did an amazing job of setting up the story and the location. I could easily picture myself in that creepy old house. It is like I said in the synopsis, this Gothic, house, and you really can picture it. All the descriptors, the way that she wrote. Also, there's some little poems intertwined into the book, which I understand is also a kind of a nod towards Agatha Christie type thing. But it really led to the creepy vibe of this story, because the poems were very creepy in themselves. I really cannot stress how well this author writes. She just has such a unique writing style, and the very first book that I read from her was pretty recent, and Sometimes I Lie, is that what it was called? Sometimes They Lie, something like that. And I know I really enjoyed that book, and I enjoyed the writing. She just has such a unique writing style, and I love it. I really do. But the absolutely most favorite part of this book was the locked door mystery. I think that's what it's called, because they're on this isolated island that once the tide comes in, they are stuck there for 8 hours, and they cannot leave. There is no way to leave. I think they can leave by boat, but they don't have a boat. So it's you are stuck there for 8 hours. And it's just such a mix, just makes you feel so creepy. And the characters were all forced to be locked into this house with this killer running around. I just love these types of mysteries. I just think it really lends to the suspense and the thrilling aspect. The con though about it that really didn't make it a 5-star read for me really had to be that it didn't really wrap up for me. Like, and I felt like it could have been longer. I think this book was only like it was less than 300 pages. I want to say it was like 250, 260, something like that. So I did feel it was a bit short. It definitely could have been longer, and I think I just felt like the ending felt a bit rushed, and it just wasn't really wrapped up for me. That all could have been wrapped up in like an epilogue. I think we could, if we would have an epilogue at the end, could have wrapped it all up, and I felt like I would have had a more satisfying ending, and I probably would have done a 5-star at that point. But I do recommend this book, and if you're a fan of like the locked door mysteries, you'll enjoy this one. The last book I read in the month of March was called The Lost Apothecary. I knew I was going to say this wrong. Apothecary by Sarah Penner. My rating 5 stars, Goodreads rating 3.76 stars, and this was the debut novel from this author. I believe it's about 2 years old. She does have a new book out, which I have just acquired, and so I'm going to read that one. But first, let's talk the synopsis, and we'll go into my thoughts. Rule number 1, the poison must never be used to harm another woman. Rule number 2, the names of the murderer and her victim must be recorded in the apothecary's register. And I apologize if I am butchering that word. One cold February evening in 1791, at the back of a dark London alley in a hidden apothecary shop, Nella awaits her newest customer. Once a respected healer, Nella now uses her knowledge for a darker purpose, selling well-disguised poisons to desperate women who would kill to be free of the men in their lives. But when her new patron turns out to be a precocious 12-year-old named Eliza Fanning, an unexpected friendship sets in motion a string of events that jeopardizes Nella's world and threatens to expose the many women whose names are written in her register. In present-day London, aspiring historian Caroline Parswell spends her 10th wedding anniversary alone, reeling from the discovery of her husband's infidelity. When she finds an old apothecary vial near the River Thames, she can't resist investigating, only to realize she's found a link to the unsolved apothecary murders that haunted London over 2 centuries ago. As she deepens her search, Carolyn's life collides with Nella's and Eliza's in a stunning twist of fate, and not everyone will survive. Yeah, they use that word in here a lot, so I'm sorry if I said it wrong and it's bugging anybody who knows how to say it. So to give you an idea of how much I loved this book, I read it in one day. We were going up to an attraction, a museum that was about a 3-hour drive. My husband drove, and so I read for the 3 hours up there. We did our little thing. I read for the 3 hours back, and then I finished it before I went to bed, or actually while I was in bed that same night. So I read it in one day. I have not done that in a very, very long time. Again, do not look at the Goodreads rating before reading this book. I was really shocked after I read it and I don't even think I looked at the rating. Like, somebody suggested this book and said they really liked it, and so I just picked it up. But I definitely just recommend going into it like I did, having absolutely no idea what it's about. If you're someone that doesn't read historical fiction, don't let that deter you either. I'm not even sure I have even ever read any historical fiction before. I feel like I have, but I don't tend to gravitate towards it, so I was a little hesitant to pick it up. And the fact that I really had no idea what an apothecary even was. This book is told in dual timelines and multiple points of view. So we have Carolyn, who is in present-day London. We have Nella and Eliza in 1791 London. The dual timelines worked really well, and I enjoyed both stories. While I was reading this, I kind of had a movie pictured in my head with like music and everything, because I could feel the excitement of Carolyn as she is exploring and trying to figure out this mystery from like over 200 years ago. But I also enjoyed the 1791 story a bit more. I really liked the mother-daughter like friendship also between Nella and Eliza. It does have fantastical elements to it, but I don't feel like they're over the top, and I don't think they're completely out of realm of the timeline. So especially when you're talking about the one from like the 18th century, I do feel like in some cases that some people really believed in this type of stuff that was being talked about. So it may be fantastical to some people, but I don't think it would be to everyone. I do think that some people may find this plot a little controversial, as the author is really asking us to connect with a murderer who is working in a profession where she should be saving lives. And I do think, though, the author handled it really well. And what is really fantastic about this book is that we're actually getting two angles from one book. So we have the historical fiction that has suspense and thriller elements, and then we have the present day that is really about female empowerment. So I really enjoyed this book. I was really surprised again, because I have never been interested in historical fiction, but I was pleasantly surprised. And I am really excited to pick up her next book, which I also believe is historical fiction and set back in the same type of timeline, but I think it's a totally different type of book. So I'm really excited to pick that up. Let me know if you've read this book. I would be really curious about it. I think that maybe because this historical fiction was more like mystery and suspense, where I feel like a lot of them are more like an epic book, like just really long, and more like literary fiction. And literary fiction I cannot get into. So I think that's why this one really spoke to me, because it wasn't like that. You know, it had more of the twists and the turns, and it was just more like thrilling. And so if you know any other historical fictions that aren't like literary fiction, let me know, because I'd be really curious to kind of read some of them. Those are my books that I read and listened to in the month of March. Let me know what you guys read. Have you read any of the ones that I talked about? What did you think about them? And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.